Tag team back again. Should we do the entire first verse to whoop? There it is to start today's podcast.
I don't think I'd know it.
I think it's
I'm
still
that old
in
now.
there, Kingy. Come on, you could rechannel it.
I've had a birthday since we last did a show, so I'm losing my marbles. Yeah, 47 now.
Oh, rustic.
Rustic. It's a nice way of putting it. Yes.
Yeah, you've been grizzled by the country.
Yeah.
Tag team back again. Check it a record. Let's begin. Come on, is it channeling anything? Party on, party people. Let me hear some noise. DC's in the house.
No, not really.
Oh, well. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball and Stuff It Fantasy Basketball crossover time here on the pod. I'm Dan Vespers. He is Adam King. This show is brought to you by our good pals over at FanDuel and the FanDuel Sportsbook. And today we're breaking down Raph's mock. We didn't tell him we were doing it, but he's probably fine with it. Here it is. Let's see how big I can make this while fitting. Nope. I think I took that took your face off the screen. That's not what I wanted to do. What's the biggest? That's probably good. Yeah. There we go. YouTubers, you stuck with me for 4 seconds there, and I made it worth your while. We only did 60 picks because who gives a crap who's going at 115 in May? That's nothing. Nonsense. But this does give you a little bit of a feel for what's going to happen towards the beginning of a draft. So Kingy and I are going to go through the first round, first 10 to 20 names-ish, something in that range. And then we'll just pick and choose anything that jumps out as interesting. This was an 8-cat mock set up by the great Raphielle Johnson. And the top of the board will not surprise you, so we'll probably move through the first 4-ish names pretty quickly. Wemby, Jokic, Luka, Shea. Is anybody interested in any? I mean, okay, let's talk about the Wemby Jokic thing. Just one time. We got to get it off our chests here. We're watching Wemby in the playoffs. He's been insane. Kingy, is this the year that Wemby breaks the internet like Wreck-It Ralph before him?
Yeah, look, I mean, I whenever I did my last show, I talked about Wemby being my number one for next season. And I think that's because of what we've seen. I just think he has some untapped stuff going on. I think Jokic, I mean, he's going to be fantastic, but he kind of is what he is, which is very good. But I think that Wemby, just as we've seen him develop and continue to develop, what he could do is more enticing than what Jokic could do at this point in his career. So, yeah, he'll have, to me, I think if you want, so maybe even Roto, bit of consistency, more of we know exactly what we're going to get every night. Jokic is probably safe, but Wemby just has that upside that I want to have on my side.
Yeah, to Wemby's credit, and I've been a staunch Jokic number one guy over the last couple of seasons while this has been part of the debate. To Wemby's credit, he got the field goal percent up this year, up over 50. He's at 51. Free throw up to 83, which wasn't really the question mark with him, but nice to turn that into a positive. Basically the exact same level positive as Jokic. And then, of course, the big gap between the two guys was one dude is 7 assists higher and the other is 2.5 blocks higher. So you're kind of like weighing which of those things is either harder to get or fits your build a little bit better. The sort of check plus or the little mark on Wemby's side that maybe works in his favor is that it kind of Kingy felt like they kid gloved him this year and he was still the number 2 player in all of fantasy basketball. Does that mean they're done kid gloving him for next year, or is this a thing that the Spurs can afford to do because they have an unbelievable treasure trove, I can speak, of young, sick basketball players where, like, look, Wemby, we can just keep you 29, 30 minutes forever and do what you're going to do. We're going to win plenty of games with or without you, where the Nuggets quite clearly need Jokic going 33, 34 minutes if they're going to win most of their ball games. So is that a thing that you're excited about or nervous about? It's weird that the same data point could be argued both ways.
Yeah, I think, and you could probably make a case both ways with Wemby. I think with what he's done in the playoffs, he's shown that he can play 34, 35, 38 minutes and continue to play at a high level. But yeah, I think I'm probably with you. I think maybe he does hover in the kind of around that 30 to 32 mark rather than 34. Just because, as you said, their guards have kind of proven themselves on the big stage. I'm still, I don't know. I mean, Luke Cornett has been exposed a little bit in the playoffs, but generally he's been solid enough to be a backup. So I think we probably see this continue. Wemby will have the odd game where he plays 35, a must-win game or a marquee matchup or something like that. But I'm still okay with that. As you said, Wemby, the difference is that Wemby, his block numbers are obviously very elite, and Jokic, his assist numbers are very elite. Yeah. I see room for growth for Wemby in the assist column, not to the point where he's getting 10 or whatever Jokic had, but I think he can bump up to be kind of a facilitator, a bit like what we're seeing from Karl Anthony Towns in the playoffs. His assist numbers have gone up to about 6 to 7. So I think there's some room for growth there for Wemby, where I don't see Jokic all of a sudden becoming this kind of 1.8 blocks per game guy because he just doesn't jump. So that's kind of, I guess, where I'm going as well with why I would go Wemby, but you really can't go wrong with either.
You really can't go wrong. Ultimately, both these guys are going to be studs, and the one that is better is probably the one that ends up playing in more games than the other next year. Luka at 3, Shea at 4. By the way, I should have noted that you did take Wemby at 1 in this mock draft, so that would have made this much simpler. Matty G had Jokic at 2. Javi-san, Doncic at 3, Raph himself, the host, Shea at 4. 9-cat, I might flip-flop those 3-4. 8-cat, Luka ahead of Shea is fine. One of Shea's sort of high markers is that he's not a high turnover guy. I don't feel like there's a whole lot that we need to say about 3-4 before we get into the more interesting order of players. Is there anything you want to add to Luka or Shea before we move on? I don't want to jump ahead of you.
Not really. I kind of agree with Luka at 3, just with LeBron on the way down and the fact that Shea has so much talent around him. It will be interesting to see if people kind of just ease off Luka a little bit and take him at 4 because of the injury, I guess, risk that comes with him. He's had some things going on in the last year or two, and obviously what was it, a hamstring or a calf, whatever he did at the end of the season that kept him out. But in saying that, if we think back kind of 4 years, Shea, people were hesitant to draft Shea because of injuries, and since then, he's been kind of an Iron Man and hasn't missed a lot of games. So, as we know, injuries come and go. So, I'd personally probably go Luka there. I think he has a little bit more potential to do more for his team rather than Shea.
All right, let's get into the meat of this thing. The rest of the first 10, BBB, bitches be ballin'. Tyrese Maxey went at 5. Noah Cade at 6. Podcast Pierre, our buddy Steve, went Halliburton at 7. That's interesting. Tyrese back after a year away. Jalen Johnson to Dan Titus at 8. Jacob Dunn took the Ant-Man at 9. And in classic Dan Vespers fashion, I took Kevin Durant at 10 because I feel like I should have to just continue to have there's the Vespers flag planted on that planet, so we'll just keep going with it. Maxey at 5. Let's just start and we'll work through this thing one by one. He was the number 5 player in 8-cat last year. He was the number 5 player in 9-cat last year. It didn't matter. He was also the beneficiary of playing on a team of dudes who make me look like I'm in high school in terms of how they move around on a basketball court, in Joel Embiid and Paul George, who combined to play almost one full season. They combined for 75 ball games. Embiid 38, Paul George 37. That left usage beyond Maxey's wildest dreams on the table. He also logged 38 minutes per game this year, which for a while I think he was actually up and over 40. I'll double check myself on this, but I think he might have been the top minute per game guy in the NBA. Yes, he was. He managed to stay mostly healthy. He missed a dozen ball games, but that's not that much these days. Is there? I mean, I don't have any specific problem with Maxey at 5. Although the other side of it is, I don't know that it could be any better than that. Does anyone?
Mm.
Let me frame the question this way for you, Kingy. Well, instead of just asking, what do you think about Maxey at 5? Because that's open ended. That's bad interview questioning. How about this question? Is there anyone behind him that has the chance to overtake him for that 5 spot?
I think Cade potentially does. And they are kind of the next two. For me, I think this will be the top 6 next season. But I certainly get what you're saying about Maxey. It was best case scenario. I guess for me, the 5 of those players, so the 4 we talked about earlier with Cade, they're pretty locked in. I think top 5. Maxey, for me, is the one that could flip-flop a little bit depending what the Sixers do in the offseason. The rest of them are set. I don't really see anything changing in terms of role production. If the Sixers sort of decide to go, hey, Paul George he's not done, but he's getting older, and they kind of steer in a different direction, maybe that impacts Maxey. Whereas those other 5, I think we're just going to see rinse and repeat kind of thing. So Cade, I would have maybe above Maxey. Beyond that, who could I see? I'm not sure about Halliburton. I know he was really good, obviously in the playoffs last season. But if we think back to the season, he dealt with some injuries. He was kind of had a bit of a down patch. So I'm okay with him going at 7, but I wouldn't be taking him in the top 6. Jalen Johnson is probably the one that I think could possibly jump into the top 6. Again, depending what the Hawks do, I think they're pretty set on the roster that they've got. So, yeah, he's probably the one. The other one obviously is, if we go sort of way down here, Kawhi Leonard was top 5, wasn't he, this season? Top 5, top 6. So if he can stay healthy, then we know what he can do. But obviously, you're not going to risk that and take him in the top 6. So
no, he'll go.
It might be Jalen
later.
Johnson. But yeah, I'm fine with Maxey there. I'd probably flip-flop them and have Cade ahead of him just because I think he's a little bit safer. But Maxey was phenomenal this year. His injury obviously came at a really bad time for fantasy because he missed the fantasy playoffs for some teams. But other than that, he was really good.
Yeah, I think I'm probably with you where there's just, especially an 8-cat. And mind you, Maxey was still ahead of Cade, even in 8-cat this past year. But it just felt like everything went almost as perfectly as it possibly could. The 2.7 combined defensive stats was an extraordinary number for Maxey, almost a block a game out of the guard spot. There's these little things where you're like, could that maybe suffer a little bit? But you're right, it's hard to know exactly because if Embiid and Paul George are healthy going into next year, how does that change things? If they're all there going into next year, how does that change things? And unfortunately, while I am a massive Tyrese Halliburton fantasy enthusiast, and he was like one of my mid-firsts in almost every league where I could get him, not this year, obviously, but the prior one. And then I bought low on him in the places where I didn't get him that year. He was awesome. He was top 5 in 9-cap, but one of the big reasons he was there was that he was at 9 assists per game and 1.6 turnovers. That ratio is Chris Paulian. And for 8-cat, that doesn't matter. You just want the bulk numbers, the 1.6 turnovers. He could have 4, and it wouldn't make any difference. So 9-cat, I think he's going to be a bigger question mark than 8. I think with 8, you can definitely let Halliburton slide a little bit farther than he did here. Jalen Johnson, just to address one of the other names that you mentioned in 8-cat this last season, I believe he was number 12 with 22.5 points, 10 boards, 8 assists, 1.2 steals. The blocks kind of tapered a little bit for Johnson. That was an area where you'd like to see more than 0.4 coming back. But again, another very good season. But like you, I think he probably belongs behind the likes of Cade and Tyrese Maxey. But it's probably around that, I guess it'd be the 7th pick where things do start to get a little hairy, right? Isn't that where how would you order the next 4 or 5 guys after the Cade Maxey duo? It feels like, and things could change going into next year, but it feels like this combination of, well, we got to see where Giannis ends up. So there's a big thing that's kind of hanging over it. Jalen Johnson, Anthony Edwards, Jason Tatum, probably not Kevin Durant, but I'll throw him in there because I took him and eventually I'm going to have to talk about him anyway. Scotty Barnes, Cooper Flagg, Donovan Mitchell. That's like the next 8. Steph Curry. Those 9 probably coming off the board after the top 6. But how do you order those guys? That feels like where things are going to start to get a little funky, yeah?
I think so, yeah. Like I touched on there earlier, that top 6, I think, for me, will be the top 6, barring any significant trades or sort of anything like that. Halliburton, yeah, I'm kind of with you. I'm not necessarily off of him, but I'm a little bit cautious. And if we were, I mean, you have to factor in that when he last played, they had Miles Turner, who was very good for them. I know he wasn't very good this season, but he was very good for that Pacers team. And they don't have a center now, to me, that can take them back to where they want to be. So I feel like they're going to have to get someone there alongside Halliburton, because I don't see. I don't know who even were. I can't even think. Jay Huff. I don't see him or.
Well, they got Zubats there now.
Oh, Zubats. Oh, Zubats is there. That's right. Yeah. Sorry. That's how long it's been since I've talked about basketball. No, Zubats is there.
You're pulling all-nighters these days.
Yeah. So no. Look, maybe. I won't scratch what I said, but it's not as impactful. I forgot because Zubats barely played for them down the stretch. He doesn't stretch the floor like Turner did, but obviously he's more of an inside kind of traditional center. Yeah, how do you order all of those guys? I think it's probably just a little bit of go with who you like. Maybe you kind of play for upside a bit. So Jalen Johnson, Anthony Edwards, Cooper Flagg. Those guys, I think, have more scope to get better when compared to someone like a Steph Curry, Karl Anthony Towns, Donovan Mitchell, even to some degree. Although I will say that James Harden, who we don't, so James Harden went with the
that's
first
me
pick
again.
The 3rd round. Yeah, that's you again. He has looked. I don't know what the best word is here to describe how his playoffs have looked, but I think he's been exposed a little bit in terms of just I know he's defensively, he's kind of always had some question marks and teams deal with that. But for me, probably the worrying sign is just his turnovers, and he's been a bit loose with his ball handling. Like teams are kind of pressuring him and stealing the ball off him, and I think that element of his game is probably on the decline, and that obviously impacts his overall value because he's been built on assists, and the shooting is still there, not as consistent, much like we've seen with Steph Curry. But I worry a little bit about James Harden, which probably helps Donovan Mitchell. But yeah, I think I'd just be looking at upside there. Scotty Barnes to me is the interesting one. I don't know what your thoughts are on him, but he was sort of quietly, he was very good this season. He kind of did everything, and I wouldn't mind taking him in that kind of range of the anywhere kind of 11 through to 15. Just, and especially in roto leagues, because he kind of just helps you everywhere.
Yeah, he was great. He was 13th in 9-cat this season and hyper durable. He played in 80 out of the Raptors' 82 regular season games. Interestingly, if we're looking at just straight 8-cat per game value this last year of the players that are floating around on the board, Kawhi was the top of the heap, but with him, you're sort of hoping for 65 games, which is what he got to this last year. Donovan Mitchell was the next one. He was number 7 in 8-cat. Steph was 9th. KD was 11th. Jalen Johnson was 12. Harden was 13th in ACAT, although half the season spent with the Clippers, so you got to mix and match a little bit there. Jamal Murray, 14th. Anthony Edwards, 15th. Kevin Porter Jr., 16th, oddly enough. Scotty Barnes was 17th in ACAT. So it's a weird amalgam of these guys where you're hoping there's a little bit more in the tank. Certainly Jason Tatum, he wasn't there because he came back and there was a ramp-up stuff going on with him. I think if I had the 7th pick, and this might be the most interesting question that we answer on today's show, you guys all know me. I'm gonna go with something predictable. I think that I'm willing to pay a small premium. I said this on a show recently. I'm willing to pay a small premium to know what I'm gonna get. I don't like. I have a fear of the unknown. What is that? There's probably a name of that. Fear of the unknown. What phobia is that? Come on, there's got to be a fun name for this. No? Come on, Google AI. Give me the fun name for it. What is the name for the fear of the unknown? Agnostophobia. Nope, that's the fear of not knowing. Okay, you know what? That's fair.
Yeah, that's
Agnostophobia. No, it's not xenophobia. I'm well AI. That's intolerance. That's not what I'm going for here. No, we'll go with agnostophobia. So I have the fear of the unknown, and so take Cooper Flagg as a really good example of this. I think there's actually a chance he's a first rounder this season.
Yeah,
but I don't think I'm ever going to be the team that takes him there because I just don't know. And as often as I'll just use Kevin Durant as an example. I don't know if he's the guy I would take at 7, but like as often as he irritates his teammates and all the crap that swirls around him from that standpoint, he always just puts up Kevin Durant numbers. You can etch him in stone. He was at 26, 5-5 with a steal, a block on great percentages again this year. And like, I thought he would do more, frankly. So 11th almost wasn't good enough in my eyes, but he was still 11th. He was still basically a first rounder, just plunking along on that Rockets team with all the mismatched pieces. Or take a Steph Curry, who was maybe the most annoying player to roster in fantasy because he was suddenly just out with a sore knee for 2 months. But he was number 9 in ACAT, 27 points, 4 to 5 threes, not that many rebounds, 5 assists, a steal, great free throw numbers, not bad field goal because he's an amazing shooter. I'm willing to pay a very small premium to just know exactly what I'm getting, what I'm building on. And you could throw Donovan Mitchell in that category as well. Maybe not as much Jason Tatum coming back from injury on a team that now Jaylen Brown probably feels like is at least half his, but mostly Tatum as well. So you'll see me taking one of those guys at 7. They are not the upside group, not by a long shot, but whatever I get there, let's say I go Steph, I'm going to feel pretty confident he's giving me first round per game numbers. I know I'm going to be able to build around his points and threes and free throw percent and go from there. Where with some of these guys, you're like, I don't know exactly what they're going to do. What if Jalen Johnson's percentages, do they go up? Do they go down? What does he hit that next rung? Is he at the next rung already? And I'm not saying that's a right or wrong way. That's just the way that I always go with this stuff. I like to know, and I probably am going to take the 3 or 4 guys where you know for sure before the guys that you don't totally know for sure. Kingy, are you the kind of maniac that might go Cooper Flagg in the first round, or is that too early, you think?
I wouldn't take him at 7. I think if it was me picking at 7, I'd go, I think I'd probably go Jalen Johnson at 7. I don't know. Well, that could change between now and then, now and the season. But in terms of Flagg, I probably would consider him kind of around pick 12. So if I was picking on the turn, I might take a shot on him there. And I'm kind of just looking at names, and you know that I punt in all my leagues. So I'm kind of looking at some nice pairings. And if I could get if Jalen Johnson falls to 11, I'd take Cooper Flagg at 14. I'd probably also take Scotty Barnes. I think those 3, Jalen Johnson, Scotty Barnes, Cooper Flagg, for me, are going to be a nice opening pair for in terms of what I'm planning to do next season. I've already got some strategies and things like that. So they might be three names that I'll be targeting kind of end of first, early second. Yeah, I'm not kind of, I know like you, and look, this will be for a lot of people. It depends who you're drafting against. Because I wouldn't take Curry in the first round. I have zero interest in him, but I understand why you would. But I'm more likely to go after the young guys. So that's probably where I'd go. Flag, I wouldn't take him at 7 or 8, but once we get closer to that turn and you can kind of start planning your pairings a little bit more, I'd consider Flag there. And I mean, as we've seen in the last 24 hours, we don't know if Kyrie's going to be there now. There's rumors that Minnesota are looking at him, or Anthony Edwards is looking at him. I don't know whether Minnesota are looking at him, but if Kyrie isn't there, that helps Flag in terms of assist numbers, things like that. But who comes back if they make a trade? So yeah, there's still a lot to happen, but I think what we saw from Flag over the final couple of months this season was pretty incredible. So I'd be okay taking him back end of the first.
I don't know, but you can hear my kid shouting on the other side of the door. I'm trying to mute my microphone on and off here. Here's one that I'm interested in your thoughts on, Kingy. Anthony Davis at 20, where I know that he fit a lot of your quadruple punts this past year. And obviously, the thing about the quadruple punt is that you're sort of buttressed against somebody going down. When would you consider AD this year, both with and without wild punt activity going on? This I think he's a fascinating fantasy name this coming season, because I think people have fully soured on him now.
Yeah, I think they have. I think you'll be able.
And you took him here, I should point out.
I did. Yeah, I took him at 20. I don't think he goes in the first round. I think we're at that point now where most people are not going to risk a first round pick on Anthony Davis, given everything that comes with him. So I think he goes second round, probably towards the middle or the back end. So kind of where I took him, people will lean into a little bit of certainty, less injury risk with their kind of around pick 15, 16, 17. But once you get into kind of the 20 range, I'd be okay. And I mean, where does he play? We don't know if he stays in Washington, if they trade him. Does he demand a trade? That seems to be a thing now that players can do. So there's a few question marks in terms of where he will actually play. But if he's playing for Washington, I would assume he would be relatively motivated to play, because they have, I mean, their roster is pretty interesting with Trae Young, man, it has been so long since I've played. Who was Keyshawn George? Keyshawn George, Alex and the number one pick. If they keep that number, if they keep the number one pick, there's kind of been rumblings that they might look to move off it to get someone in. And obviously, if you're building around Anthony Davis, Trae Young, their kind of window is now-ish, where those younger players, their window might be in 5 years. So what direction do the Wizards go in here? I think they have some flexibility. So that is kind of a question that comes with Anthony Davis. But where I took him there around pick 20, I'd be okay. I think back end of the second round. If you can get him in the third round, even better. But I feel like someone is just going to take a chance on that upside. And again, I paired him with Wemby there. That's a great pairing if you are punting. So I think that's probably the range he goes in, where I took him, late second, early third.
I mean, I feel like I'm going to be enticed by him everywhere, and it's still so early that I haven't really made up my mind on whether I'm going to actually let the courtship work. I should mention, by the way, that right now, if you think the Spurs have a chance to win the title, which they certainly do, you can still get them for plus 210 over at FanDuel and the FanDuel Sportsbook. Although I should also mention that 4 months ago, we talked about taking them at plus 1,000. So maybe that ship has sailed. If you think the Knicks have a chance to win the title, they're plus 440. I mean, they're on a pretty Cinderellian run these days. They're not Cinderella. They're not the underdog, but like wild comebacks and all that stuff. But ultimately, it does kind of feel like the Thunder and the Spurs are on their way down that chute. Again, these and so much more available over at FanDuel and the FanDuel Sportsbook. Check them out. They are our title sponsors here at Old Man Squad and Stuff It Fantasy Basketball Podcasts. Again, just finishing up the thought on Anthony Davis, like he's going to be sitting there in the late teens, around 20, whatever, I think in a lot of drafts this coming year. And I don't know how I'm going to say no, because when he's playing, he's a top 5 fantasy player. And there are just very few guys, that Kawhi being the other one, but like, he's going to sit every back-to-back. So Kawhi, like, you're starting at 68 games played as the maximum. With Anthony Davis, that's not the maximum. He's hurt all the time, but it's not usually planned absences. The way that the Kawhi Leonard is like family vacation kind of thing. Like, oh yeah, we're gonna need these days off. I don't know how I'm gonna stop myself from taking AD if he's still out there at the end of the second round. Kingy, are you surprised that Giannis fell all the way to 16 in an 8-cat, presumably head-to-head draft? I mean, someone is usually inclined to punt free throws before you get to pick 16, but like, it feels like he's being punished more in this draft than he will be in more public drafts come the start of next season, because of the shutdown stuff, because of the Bucks tanking, etc. I mean, he's going to get, presumably, I'm getting ahead of myself, feels like he's going to get traded somewhere, and then he'll rocket back up. Maybe he's the guy that ends up going 7th in most drafts when this is all said and done. I don't like punting free throws. You're very good at it among the multi-punt, but like, I was floored that he fell this far. I feel like, is this just like we all kind of forgot about him because he didn't play for the last 4 months?
I think it might be. I wouldn't take him. I usually just don't end up with Giannis. But yeah, there's obviously question marks here regarding his health. He was saying he was fine. The Bucks didn't want to play him, but that will all be gone when we get to next season, because, as you said, he will presumably be on another team. I don't really see him falling into the second round. Someone will take him. Yeah, I don't think he goes top 6. Maybe someone kind of who just really likes Giannis does take him at 6 or something. But I think he goes kind of around that 9 to 10 range. And then obviously you build around what he brings to the table and what he doesn't bring to the table. Yeah, I think this was a little bit of, he's been injured, he hasn't really played. Yeah. And Yuri kind of went, oh, Giannis is still sitting there. I'll take him.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, kind of yeah.
Who jumps out at you on this board? Let's go into let's talk about each of the interesting ones. Who jumps out at you as an interesting name over the, literally from top to bottom? Because again, we only went 60. If there's somebody we haven't talked about up top, or someone a little bit farther on, or even somebody you took yourself, who's a player of note here?
I mean, there's a few. LaMelo Ball, I'm curious to see where he goes. The Hornets obviously had a really good year, and LaMelo was pretty healthy, and we kind of saw what he can do. So does he push his way back into the top 20? He went at, what did he go at here? 27? And I think that's probably where he goes, kind of anywhere after 20. I'd be okay taking him. So he's an interesting one. I feel like he might be someone that Alex Barutha ends up with in a lot of drafts. He likes he has a bit of a fondness for LaMelo, and he'll take advantage of the fact that he can get him a little bit later. Amen Thompson. So I got Amen Thompson at 31. I was pretty happy with that because I know that Fred VanVleet will come back next season, but I actually think that helps Amen Thompson. I think he was good last season, but it was the season before that he kind of broke out and started doing all of his stuff. And I think last season he was tasked with doing a little bit more on the ball. And so next season, presumably with Fred VanVleet back, he can play off ball, focus on his defense a little bit more. So I really liked getting Amen Thompson there at 31. One player I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on, where did he go? He went with the 5th pick of the 5th round, Jalen Williams, who we really didn't see this season. And he's injured again with another hamstring injury. So that's kind of, and these are both hamstrings that he's injured now and have caused him to miss significant time. So are you kind of off of him? Because I feel like he'll still go. I know he went at 45 here. I think he'll go higher than that once we hit draft season. But are you like, does that worry you? And because we had a lot of calf and hamstring injuries this season, are those players? I mean, Aaron Gordon, he's not someone who is as elite as Jalen Williams. But we had a few players that dealt with multiple soft tissue injuries. Are they going to impact where players are drafted next season, or was it kind of an anomaly? Because I don't know, it seemed to be a trend that not a good trend.
Yeah, it does impact it for me, for whatever that's worth. His usage was down, his minutes were way down, and a lot of that was injury-related stuff, and you can probably pin the injury stuff for some of his other shortcomings this year. Defensive stats way down from 2.3 to 1.5 combined, from 17 shots a game to 13 and a half. I mean, he was like around number 90 this year. He'll be better than that next season. More even perhaps than the hamstring. I'm a little bit concerned about just how deep the Thunder are, where like even when Jalen Williams was rolling for about the 3 weeks that he was actually fully healthy this year, he still wasn't the Jalen Williams of the year before. Chet is doing more. AJ Mitchell ended up doing quite a lot this year. Those are probably the two big ones. I guess Case and Wallace did a little bit more this year also. So all of a sudden, the sort of like easy path to 17 shots, it's just not there for him the way it was. And maybe it does come rocketing back. Maybe he ends up as a top 30 guy again. But unless he's going where he went here in the 40s, he's probably not a guy that I'm going to be targeting hard. I mean, if he falls into the 40s, I'm almost definitely going to take him there. I don't think he will. I think he'll, like you said, I think he probably goes a little bit earlier than that. But yeah, I'm in no hurry to get back on the Jalen Williams thing, whether it's because of the injury stuff or just the fact that like he doesn't need to do what he did. They're too deep. So I'm in slight fade mode, but this is maybe a larger fade than required. Here, let me give you two big men I want your thoughts on. Alperen Şengün at 34 and Domantas Sabonis at 56. Doesn't that feel? And look, I'm not a Şengün guy because of the free throw thing. He's fantastic in a punt free throw build, and he's not terribly fantastic in a traditional build. But that was when he was going middle of the second round. Now all of a sudden he was number 53 in straight 9-cat this past year. Punt free throw, he jumps all the way up to number 22. This felt late on Şengün, and it felt super late on Domantas Sabonis. And I know the Kings are in what appears to be rebuild mode. Like, do we think that Sabonis just isn't going to play the last 6-7 weeks of this coming season? Is that why he's going so low? Because I know he wasn't very good fantasy-wise, but, like, he played, a couple of weeks, and then they were like, you're good this year. Doesn't this feel really late on those big men?
Yeah, Şengün's an interesting one. He kind of gets that comparison to Jokic, the Jokic light kind of player. And again, I think he is someone that will benefit from Fred VanVleet being back on the court. I know he has the ability to play as a facilitator and handle the ball a little bit, but getting VanVleet on the floor as opposed to whoever they had running point, I know it was kind of a mishmash of Reed Shepherd and Amen Thompson and whoever else. So I think if you're able to get Şengün in this range, that you'd be pretty stoked. But I don't think he falls this far once next season rolls around, I think he pushes back inside the top 30. As for Sabonis, yeah, I mean, it comes down to what Sacramento look like. Does it look like they are going to continue to lose and tank? Because then you have to. I know that the NBA is trying to eliminate tanking with these new rules and things, but it's still going to happen to some degree. So I think this is a really good value on Sabonis. How high does he go? I don't know. I'd have him probably in that range where Şengün went. So 34, 35. Jaren Jackson's in there. Walker Kessler. I'd have Sabonis in that range. But it depends on, well, is he even in Sacramento? Do they look to trade him? Because I'm sure teams would happily take Sabonis on. He's not, I don't know how old he is. Do you know how old he is? I feel like he's
off the top of my head, no, but I can look it up.
Early 30s. Maybe I'm not even close there.
He is 30, right on the nose.
30.
Yes.
So he's obviously still got a lot left in the tank, and he's coming off a season where he barely played. So he should be motivated. He should be refreshed, whether that's with Sacramento or a team that actually has a clue on how to manage a roster. I don't think he falls this far. I think this was probably a situation, again, where when we were drafting on Fantrax, he was probably way down because he hadn't played this season. And Noah kind of scrolled and went, oh, Domantas Sabonis is still sitting there at 200, so I'll take him. I think everything kind of levels out, and he probably goes inside the top 40.
All right, who else jumps out? Your turn. Who do you like or don't like?
I guess just maybe a broader question in not necessarily, well, I mean, a couple of players here, but Utah has been a team that we've kind of faded. So Lauri Markkanen, Walker Kessler to some degree, we've kind of gone off of them because of just the direction that Utah have taken. But coming into next season, I think they're ready to push. So where do you kind of sit on Jaren Jackson, Walker Kessler, Lauri Markkanen? Because Markkanen has been kind of a top 20, top 30 player who you could get in the 70s or the 60s because of the assumption that he's only going to play 55 or 60 games. They're going to manage his minutes. But is that what we see next season? Because he probably, I mean, where did he go? I'm looking for his name here. He must be here.
Which one? Lowry?
He
is
there he is.
44.
44. So that's kind of in the middle. Like he could be a top 20 player. We've seen him do that on a per game basis. But if he only plays 55 games, then this feels fine, and you may even get him a bit later. So are you kind of back on the Utah train, or
I think I am.
Kind of wait and see what happens?
I think I'm in. Are you in too?
I think so. I think their team, they drafted, they didn't draft. They traded for players that are kind of in win now mode.
Right.
So that indicates to me they probably looked at Keontae George, who obviously was one of the breakouts this season, and they went, you know what? I think we're ready to go. Lauri Markkanen is another player that's in that sort of Sabonis age range. I think late 20s, early 30s. His window is kind of 3 to 4 years. It probably, I mean, the two names that are jumping out here at me that are kind of the ones that bring uncertainty are Jaren Jackson and Walker Kessler for different reasons. Kessler didn't play. And I know because I drafted him in a lot of teams this season. He didn't really play, but when he did play, though, that first week, he looked good. He kind of did what I thought he would do.
He looked great.
But they've added Jaren Jackson, so they now have. I mean, presumably they're going to run with Walker Kessler, Jaren Jackson, and Lauri Markkanen. It's the biggest front court in history, almost. So, does the fact that they have that two shot blockers, does that impact someone like a Kessler or vice versa, a Jaren Jackson? Because neither of them are going to be that kind of elite shot blocker, or are you still in on both of those guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm in contingent on being able to get him at a little bit of a discount. I don't know that you're getting Jackson or Kessler at much of a discount in this particular draft at 36 and 37. I would hope that Kessler goes a little later than that. I guess I don't know for sure. Markkanen at 44 is more. I think that one's more intriguing. I actually took Keontae George at 41, which I think for 8-cat obviously gets a bump as a relatively inefficient ball player. The nice thing is Utah plays fast. The big men get stats for the Jazz, so that's helpful for guys like Kessler and Jaren Jackson. Lauri Markkanen full-time at the 3 is a little goofy, but he's done it before, so it's not completely out of the realm of what he can handle. I do think there's maybe, like, is there quite enough for all of them to get back where they were this year? Maybe not, but now that you're actually adding in the last 7 to 8 weeks of the season again, I feel like that kind of papers over whatever slight decreases maybe they hit. From this page, what we're looking at here on this draft, Jaren Jackson at 36, fair but not a deal. Kessler at 37, probably fair but not a deal. Markkanen at 44, I think is a good grab. George at 41 is probably kind of fair because point guards get pushed up the board a little bit. But I don't mind it. I don't know that anybody beyond those 4 guys, there's enough for any of the other like 13 Jazz that had fantasy value at some point this last year. Isaiah Collier, Kyle Filipowski, Ace Bailey, probably not enough there either. They're getting another top pick, probably not enough there. I think Nurk is off contract now with them. Not that matters a whole lot. Bryce Sensabaugh, nope. So, if anything, the fantasy value is just going to be clustered kind of in that top 4 group. And that's probably where I sit on them. Let me give you one last name, and then we can... there's a couple more. Damn it. The names that I was hoping to cover are Devin Booker, Kyrie Irving, and Tyler Hero. Hero is the least interesting of those 3. So let's talk about Booker and Kyrie. Kai went at 43, right in between, actually, Keontae George and Lauri Markkanen, who we were just talking about. Dan Titus took Kyrie at 43. Devin Booker went at 25, despite an absolute dumpster fire of a season. How do you deal with Kyrie off a season absence on a team that's in kind of like partial rebuild mode because Cooper Flag is already really, really, really good? And how do you deal with Devin Booker, who, whatever the cause was, he just, like, the fantasy value didn't translate at all. He was number 70 in 9-cat, which I realize is an 8-cat draft, but he only got up to 46th in 8-cat. It feels like he had to be so much better, and he wasn't. And it wasn't like his team was super healthy. The Suns were really banged up this year. There was every opportunity for Booker to do all the things, and he didn't. I'm very confused on what to do with Booker. With Kyrie, I me and my love of old dudes. Like, I'm gonna to me, Kyrie profiles as like the perfect Kawhi Leonard-esque type of play in the 40s. But what do we do with Booker, man?
Yeah, I'm with you on Kyrie. I think he's relatively safe in that kind of 40 range. Basically where he went here, I think he is okay. Booker is a weird one. I remember coming into the season, we kind of viewed him as not a breakout because he's very good already, but we saw an opportunity for him to get his assist numbers up. The scoring has always been a constant. So we were kind of in on him in terms of drafting him above other players. For example, coming into the season, most people would have absolutely taken Devin Booker ahead of Jamal Murray, I think, in almost every situation. Yet Jamal Murray was way better. He had a kind of a unexpected bump in production. I don't really see much room for growth. But Devin Booker is who we're talking about. I don't know. To me, Booker's kind of turning into. He's never been someone that I've been super high on because he doesn't defend, or he doesn't get defensive stats. You might have his numbers there in front of you, but
yeah, 0.8 steals,
yeah.
just 0.3 blocks, so 1.1 combined.
So
that's low.
Yeah, so he doesn't get defensive stats. He actually doesn't hit a lot of threes. I know people think of him as this kind of elite 3-point shooter, but he is not. I mean, he's very good, but I don't know how many threes he was at.
1.8.
Oh, 1.8, even under 2. So he doesn't hit a lot of threes, and that obviously takes away, because everyone else is hitting threes, the less you hit, the further you slide in the rankings. So him not being kind of a 2.5, 2.8 threes per game player hurts him. The assists didn't really bump up to where we thought they would. So, yeah, to me, he's kind of just turning into almost a one-trick pony. He kind of just scores, and that's it. He gets to the free throw line. He's fine from the free throw line. So, for me, he's not really someone I'm going to target this season. What was he in the 40s last season? He probably goes in the third round. So, kind of where he is here, maybe even later, around pick 30. Maybe someone believes he can turn it around. He didn't get a full season alongside Jalen Green, so we don't really know what they look like together. Dylan Brooks was far better than I think anyone thought he would be. So does he progress next season? So there's some question marks there regarding kind of his usage and what he's doing. But yeah, Booker was pretty disappointing. And
I'll say,
yeah, I'm not in on him. I think someone will take him just because of the fact that he can score 30 a game kind of for stretches of the season. But yeah, he was, as I said, his fantasy game for me is just a little bit empty.
I know you're a fan of ultra early mocks. This wasn't yours, but when can we expect the next Kingy ultra early mock?
It's coming. I'm sort of getting itchy fingers. So yeah,
I was picturing the Dave Chappelle character you're like over there.
Yeah, Tyrone. Yeah, I've got. So it's coming. I think probably we're kind of in like NBA, well, almost in the finals mode now. So I think probably, what do we got left in the season? A month, maybe. So I think there's probably a mock coming. I would say in the next 3 weeks, probably once we're at the moment, we're getting constant NBA. There's a game a day. They're just cycling through the conference finals. Once we get into the NBA finals and we have one game and then maybe a day or 2 days break, that's probably when I will go, you know what? People are ready to mock. So I think, probably early to mid-June.
Early to mid-June. You heard it, ladies and gentlemen. He is Adam King at AdamKing91 on the socials. I'm Dan Vespris at Dan Vespris on the socials. This is an Old Man Squad fantasy basketball and Stuff It fantasy basketball crossover episode, or episodes, depending on what format you're listening to. A big thank you to Adam King, who stayed up all night to get ready for this podcast, and no other reasons. That's the only reason he did it. I stayed up all night because my children no longer sleep. But between the two of us, we have 22% of a working brain. Thanks for listening, everybody. Appreciate you guys hanging out all off season long, and we will get more coming at you in the not too distant future. So long for now.